A084.0008 hospital tax ordinance individually as we go through them as we did tonight. Eligible, Better Brands, Dothan, Alabama, wholesale.
And I would like to say that the first man that spoke, Mr. Leonard.
Eligible, IGA Food Liner, Westgate.
Burden that other subdivisions in this community are not going to have to accept. We live out there, we like it.
Billy Henson was on our side of the ball. He was a defensive player, our nose guard, and Coach moved him back over to offensive guard, and he's his junior year. So he's got a defensive personality. He'll attack you, you know.
The odds of rolling one 300 game are pretty high, but two are astronomical. But 3 weeks ago, 27-year-old Phil Tillery of Montgomery recorded 12 strikes in a row for the second time in his 12-year bowling career.
You start thinking about it. You say, well, all I need is about 4 more or 5 more, and I got me another one, or I got me one. You just start walking the concourse, and you kind of have to get away because it's hard to, if not, you're going to be sitting right here in this concourse looking up there, and you see all them strings of strikes, and you say, oh, my gosh, you know, you just can't do it, you know. You can imagine what you got about 150, 200 people standing behind you just watching you throw these 3 shots. And it's exhilarating, believe me, it really is.
Tillery is program director at Montgomery Lanes, where he rolled the second of his 300 games. He admits knowing the lanes did help, but not when the pressure began to mount. Should you ever string together 11 strikes, Tillery has a tip before you try for number 12.
Before you get ready to start your approach, just take you a nice, deep, big breath and go throw it. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. If it's not, you know, then, hey, you got another shot down the road somewhere.
Now, 2 300 games are certainly worth remembering, but Tillery confesses they do not account for his most memorable bowling experience.
My wife and I were married in the bowling lanes. We were married in the bowling center here in town. That was 7 years ago, and she carries about 185 average. She bowls real well herself.
Dave Cody, WSFA TV Sports.
Step out to go on page 272. Richard Johnson.
See, there's nothing but a mistake on my part. I don't have any alibi for it, any excuse for it. I intend to pay my price just like I think anybody ought to that does drink it.
9th of September of 1864 was it.
For the next 5 years, and you throw the career ladder out the door, and then transmit the career ladder. Now, I may be wrong on that. Is that the way you understand terms?
We think that the purpose of a career ladder is to attract, reward, and retain better teachers. And this is a message to the people who are preparing to go into a career, who are in college now. We want to send them a message that education is going to be an attractive career to go into.
Now, somebody mentioned that you've got to have equal debits and credits. Our salary expense is debit.
From May to September of 1864 was the Atlanta campaign. Now, Atlanta was the other Southern commander during the Atlanta campaign. This picture around, you can see that. The commander of the Southern Army was General Joseph E. Johnson. I'm going to pass his picture around. And when you look at this picture, I want you to look on the back.
Major honors that we're now collecting from the superseders to 40. Allows us to stay out for the remainder of 1985. Our earnings would be in the range where the U.S. Supreme Court had upheld the one nation on a combined basis for the end of the year was at 11.76. But
what you want money is our last, final, bottom line, and we say this is the rocket that brought them, no food. Make it.
I'm not going to get hung up on that. Is that all that we would prefer to be on this? And we set by basically coming down from 49. So plus the $1 on residence rate. I understand that, but the refund, of course, would pull that in line up until, say, March 1. That's the way we computed it.
So we said you will follow the law about education. And it's amazing that they could have waited a year or two later. I think the governor's people want a good bill. In fact, I know they do. And that's what I want. And I think we're going to get those so-called compromises. I think the bill as is needs some modification, obviously. And with certain modifications, I can climb aboard and be a full participant. But unless there are some changes made, yes, I think we'll get some of them at least.
It's the year of the ox on the Chinese calendar, a time for paying debts, a time for sharing in a centuries-old culture. And for the Huang family of Montgomery, it's a family time. The new year is, after all, the most important of the Chinese holidays.
We Chinese don't have Thanksgivings. American Thanksgivings, usually they get together at Thanksgivings, but Chinese we get together at New Year's Eve.
Tradition plays a big role in the celebration. The start of a new lunar year is met with feasts, lavish parties, and in China, parades and fireworks. Gifts are also given. Small red packets of money are supposed to bring good luck.
It depends on, totally up to you how many money you put in there.
Depends on how much you like them, right?
Yeah, it depends.
Just why it's the year of the ox, nobody really knows. The symbols of the Chinese calendar are much like our signs of the zodiac. They too are based on tradition. In short, the Chinese New Year is, for Chinese people, a time for renewal, a time to reestablish friendships and family ties, a time for starting over. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News.
Garner, an unsuccessful 1982 candidate for Montgomery County Sheriff, pleaded guilty to arson, conspiracy to commit robbery, and second-degree burglary. Circuit Judge Charles Price sentenced the reputed Klan leader to 15 years in a state prison. Garner admitted guilt to all 3 charges and told of each act in detail before the judge would accept the pleas. District Attorney Jimmy Evans and Assistant U.S. Attorney General William Bradford Reynolds said the sentences sends a message to the Klan.
But overall, when you assess it, I think it makes a serious impact on Klan activity. I mean, after all, you're locking up the leader in a federal penitentiary for 15 years, you know.
We view this as a significant event. Again, this is a priority item. This is one of those activities that drew an awful lot of national attention with the burning of the Southern Poverty Law Center. It's something that we targeted at that time, and the state targeted on a coordinated basis to get to the bottom of, and we have accomplished that. And I feel strongly that there is certainly much credit that needs to be given, and we certainly should give it to the local authorities for all that they did.
Evans and Reynolds say their investigation is continuing, but decline to say what the probe involves or who is the target of the probe. This is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News reporting.
This is a mall site at the intersection of the Ross Clark Circle and US 231 North in Dothan. A billboard that is the only clue a mall will one day be here. By the time the mall opens in August 1986, it will look like this, something this area has never seen before.
The mall, believe it or not, is just going to be fantastic. It is actually going to be larger than either one of the shopping centers in Montgomery, Alabama.
A combination of stores that will excite you and entice you, and I hope incite you to spend your money.
3 department stores have already committed to the mall. None of the 3 have been in the Wiregrass before, but all 3 have been looking at Dothan.
Zitz has looked hard and long at Dothan. We wanted to come here for many years.
Always the conclusion has been the same. We must open a store in Dothan.
4 years of work has gone into this project, a project which Dothan officials say will be a tremendous boost to the economy of the entire Wiregrass. Developer Jim Wilson calls his project a first for Alabama.
You have 3 Alabama department stores that are anchoring this Alabama shopping center being developed by an Alabama developer.
Cal Calloway, WSFA TV News, Dothan.
I don't know, towards the end of...
If the state legislature approves the governor's proposed education budget as is, the Auburn University system would receive about $109 million in appropriations. Money University President Dr. James Martin says is badly needed.
It permits us to address some of the additional deferred maintenance problems that we have on our 2 campuses and in our Ag Experiment Station and Cooperative Extension Service. It will permit us to become a little more competitive with respect to the erosion that's taken place over the last 6 years with respect to faculty salaries.
The main campus would receive $68.5 million for its faculty, staff, programs, and maintenance, about a 19% increase over 1984. Auburn at Montgomery is in line for $11 million, a 16% increase over the '84 appropriation of $9.5 million. Auburn's Agriculture Experiment Station would get a 13% increase, almost $13.5 million, and the Cooperative Extension Service would receive almost $16 million. Auburn's proposed budget also includes funding for a highway research center, new equipment, research library enhancement, and an eminent scholars program. Any money donated to the university, at least $500,000, would be matched by the state to fund a professorship.
I think the short answer is yes, it will permit us to continue with the basic thrust that we initiated last year.
Lawmakers say the education budget could be passed in about a month and a half. Dean Argo, WSFA TV News.
Very much, being with you last year, and I believe this is one of the... In 1859, a French type walker stretched a cable 1,100 feet
We look forward to it each year. And it also lends credence to the fact that we do appreciate another year in which you have held a prayer luncheon here in Montgomery.
Your hand.
Unanimous.
The motion has been adopted and the parade permit has been given.
Of business, so we can accommodate their desire to march the original route that Dr. King took. At the same time, we can maintain the constitutional rights of our citizens to use their streets to their best advantage.
6-3.
6-3. The ordinance has...
Hearing on the proposed instructional records by the Department of Inspection.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the council chamber that... All in favor, please signify by raising your hand.
I want to thank you very much, very sincerely, for this, which is probably the highest moment of my life. This is just tremendous, and I'm very appreciative.
State hazardous waste experts are in Ozark at this hour, where earlier this evening it's believed a truck may have leaked PCBs, a suspected cancer-causing chemical, onto the roadway. Christy Steves of TV12's Wiregrass Bureau is standing by with the latest details. Christy?
Lynn, a truck carrying a shipment of electric transformers was traveling from Dothan to Greenwood, Mississippi. It was here on Highway 231, just inside the city of Ozark, that 4 state troopers stopped the truck driver to inspect the leak. Apparently, the transformers may contain PCB material, which is a cancer-causing agent. All 4 troopers are undergoing decontamination as a precaution to their exposure.
They tell us there's approximately 90 transformers on that truck, and of course no one is sure or certain as to whether any of them contain PCBs, and it'll require testing all 90 of them in order to find out if any of them do. We've got the truck moved to an isolated area and it's secured, and at this particular time we don't feel like there's any immediate danger to the public or anyone else.
At this time, there's an emergency team from Montgomery at the site. They're a team called a Hazardous Materials Respond Team. They respond to hazardous material spills. Lynn?
Huntington jumped on the Bulldogs for 3 runs in the first inning of the second game. Freshman Terry Porter drove in Lamar Smallwood with a single to left. 2-0 Hawks at this point. Tim Ward then walked with the bases loaded, forcing in David Beasley with Huntington's third run of the inning. The Bulldogs, though, took a bite out of that lead in their half of the first, touching Huntington starter Jim Abbott for 2 hits before designated hitter Ty Payne delivered a 2-out, 2-run double to left center. Eddie Scott and David Phillips scored for Sanford. This one wouldn't be decided until Porter homered in the bottom of the 7th inning to give Huntington a 6-5 victory and a sweep of their doubleheader. Dave Cody, WSFA TV Sports.
Any transform, where it just has mineral or not, we're supposed to report them. So yes, this is precautionary. We do it in all instances. So I'm not overly concerned. I do not feel that this has created any hazard for the public. I think we've addressed it as we should, like all utilities do.
The truck was traveling from Dothan to Greenwood, Mississippi. It was loaded with a shipment of electrical transformers on the way to a salvage company. Just inside the Ozark city limits on US 231, the truck was pulled over by state troopers who noticed liquid leaking from the truck. Shortly afterward, the state troopers' newly formed hazardous materials response team flew to Ozark to investigate. As a precaution, the team treated the spill as though it were hazardous material, even though they weren't sure what their tests would reveal. The truck was brought to the old Dothan City Yard. Here, city employees inspected the transformers for possible PCB contamination. A spokesman for the city of Dothan, which own the transformers, says he doubts they contain PCBs. He says the tests are just a precaution.
Any transform, where it just has mineral or not, we're supposed to report them. So yes, this is precautionary. We do it in all instances. So I'm not overly concerned. I do not feel that this has created any hazard for the public. I think we've addressed it as we should, like all utilities do.
All 90 transformers have been removed from the truck and are currently being tested. Christy Steves, WSFA TV News, Dothan.
Court records show that the case arose as a result of a policy purchased by Jack Schamberger of Montgomery. Schamberger claimed that the agent selling him the policy guaranteed him an interest-free loan of $7,500 at the time his son was old enough to attend college.
I bought the policy on Philip when he was 13 years old and paid premiums on it for 5 years until he was age 18, which was college age.
Schamberger's lawyer, Richard Jordan of Montgomery, gives his opinion of why the jury returned a $100,000 damage verdict.
Paid premiums for 5 years. Then when the young man gets ready to go to college at 18, they tell him there was a condition and that the interest-free portion of his policy is not effective anymore. And the jury just simply felt like it had been misrepresented to him, and that's why the large punitive damages.
The defendant, Southern Educators Life Insurance, has 10 days to file for a new trial in the case. As of late today, no such action had been taken. This is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News reporting.
The first one is just done by a statewide committee enacted into law like that with it. Number 7, incentive pay for better teaching can have a positive impact on education. For it to be used in a highly politicized manner, however, for the benefit of organizations, individuals, or agencies should be totally unacceptable to the public.
We just kind of feel like, and to be able to use that as a basis for our evaluation. And that's what Mr. Quinn.
So how many out of 560 would be?
236 are immediately 236.
1985 Minuteman of the Year.
Colonel Botter and to all of my friends.
$300 bond, and then you go free, and you start selling booze before the sun goes down.
Leitner and the effort she's put into it, Mrs. Fine here for the state, and each of us.
Question part, Curtis. Yes, sir. Does it have anything to do in the language about people under 21?
Man, we'll vote.
All right. We don't have.
Of going out and doing what is necessary in order to provide for their family. They can take on one another roles in terms of.
Well, this type of celebration is designed to foster community awareness. We hope that these events, and we have several, not just the Black History Week, but several ethnic type of celebrations, will just strengthen community relations, strengthen the understanding among people.
Extremely important that some of you may or may have those role models, and they need to be there for any number of reasons. Now, previously, some of us had spoke to the leadership in the Black community and in the military.
We have achieved both of these goals. We have staged our first induction banquet, and we have obtained the donor music to education The way a song like the group Alabama's is going to be a tremendous asset to the state of Alabama. Its library on Southern music.
I suppose more stars, nationally, internationally, have come to the shoulder here to have their recordings made and come back anybody ever imagined. In my judgment, this is going to be the recording center of the whole world.
We do know that the fire seemed to be contained just to the living room area and the area of the body. And it does have some suspicious traits about it, but we're not going to draw any conclusions. It's too early. And it may be a day or so before we're able to determine the identity of the body.
From the days of offering only the use of a safe to now, savings accounts, IRAs, interest-bearing accounts, no-charge checking, investment plans, real estate financing, and with technology, 24-hour automatic teller machines, or ATMs. It's these electronic push-button wall banks that are the focus of the latest field of competition. The so-called Big Four, First Alabama, South Trust, AmSouth, and Central Banks, would love to have new legislation allowing them to put their ATMs anywhere in the state, including areas they currently don't serve. Take Prattville, for example.
It provides them the convenience of being able to bank not only in Montgomery if they work in Montgomery and live in Prattville. It also affords them the convenience of when they're in Prattville, if they bank in Montgomery, to be able to use an ATM rather than drive back across the river to Montgomery.
But the smaller independent banks are viewing this as a master move by the big banks to take over all banking business in the state by saturating the rural areas with cut-rate banking.
I don't know if the word sinister is appropriate. I think they're very ambitious businessmen. If they want to come in and buy a bank, expend the funds that it takes to put up a brick-and-mortar facility, and do the same things that we have to do as independent bankers, then we don't have any problem with that. We can compete with them.
If we don't do it in Alabama, somebody else is going to do it for us. This being done nationwide.
And one of the keys is that the ATMs would have to be shared by any bank or financial business that wants to pitch in. That would include Prattville banks going together and putting an ATM at Maxwell, where many of its customers work, or Eastdale Mall, where many of its customers shop. The so-called ATM bill is making its fourth appearance before the legislature this year. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News.
There are some tired horses in the Birmingham Stallions secondary. Long hours on the practice field have been commonplace. Ever since the New Jersey Generals, the Stallions' opponent Sunday, inserted Doug Flutie in the lineup. Although he's only been in a general uniform 3 weeks, the heralded Heisman Trophy winner can present a lot of problems for the Stallions' defense.
It's mostly his running ability. You know, he's very elusive. He can get away from the rush, he break containment, and he scrambles for like 53 yards in the last scrimmage. So if we don't contain him, he can be a lot of problem for us.
He runs a different type of offense. We have to prepare for the rollout and sprint out type of passing. But really, it's, you know, we're still playing New Jersey, and they have a lot more weapons than Doug Flutie with the two running backs that they have.
It's ironic that Doug Flutie will be making his professional football regular season debut on the same field where he enjoyed 3 of his finest hours as a collegian.
Before a national television audience, the scrambling Flutie directed a come-from-behind victory over Alabama at Legion Field in September. The Heisman was his for the taking. The former Boston College quarterback was not nearly as impressive in 3 postseason appearances and in his USFL exhibition debut last week.
I'm glad I'm not in his shoes. The pressure of coming in out of college as a rookie is tough, regardless of the circumstances, but he is just going to be under so much pressure. Every critic in the world is watching and criticizing everything he does, telling him what he should be doing. It's tough to concentrate on what the coach tells you to do. And for his sake, for him, I feel a little bit sorry for him, being in that position. Then again, I'd like to have his contract.
In Birmingham, Dave Cody, WSFA TV Sports.
He just couldn't get it to go.
So the Georgia Bulldogs hold on for that crucial SEC win, moving them again into a tie for first place with Kentucky and LSU. Auburn had a shot at it. They gave it their best shot.
Last year's 15-5 wasn't quite good enough. We got to be able to beat the champion Baltimore Stars, and of course the New Jersey Generals are a fine football team. They were also 14-4 last year, so we're going to have our hands full Sunday. It ought to be a great game, and the fans ought to get a look at some of the premier talent in the USFL, and I think probably as good a talent as there is in a lot of leagues.
Alabama wasted little time scoring the first 8 points of the game, mostly working inside to Bobby Lee Hurt and Buck Johnson. Johnson had the big night, scoring 27 points and pulling down 11 rebounds. Bobby Lee Hurt, who called it maybe his team's best effort of the year, scored 16 and had 8 rebounds. In the second half, Alabama stretched its lead to 30 at one point and coasted home with the starters on the bench. As good as the Tide's 70% shooting was, Wimp Sanderson believed it was not the most important factor.
We shot it well and combined that with a good defensive effort. We didn't give Tennessee the good shots, and we
had a good sound defensive plan. Our assistant coaches did a good job. We had good practice leading into this.
We came out and got on early and it just kept it up, and I think they kind of got down, and as we kept doing things better and better, and played good defense, they just never got back in the game.
I think my shot's coming around now. I shot pretty good, and the team shot pretty good, I think. I don't know what the statistics was, but I think overall we shot pretty good tonight.
Patients are learning that they do have choices.
And choice is one thing that's available now in the healthcare field. Rising costs are the reason. Latest figures show the cost of an average stay in an Alabama hospital is more than $2,200. The government and insurance industry have responded to the increasing costs by coming up with alternative methods of receiving and paying for health care.
Those have changed. Now they're encouraging outpatient surgery, outpatient care, home health care.
Increasing costs have prompted new ways of looking at health care. No longer does a patient have only one option, that of going to a private physician and, if necessary, a hospital. Alternatives are now available, and a patient can now shop around and find whichever one is most suitable. In effect, the patient has become the consumer. Patients can now buy into health care programs, such as the Health Maintenance Organization and preferred provider organizations. But more immediate choice is available in the form of urgent care centers.
The public has shown that they want their options and their choices in whatever endeavor you want, whether it's 7-Eleven stores or service stations or whatever.
We did it to enhance, the flow of patients into the system, obviously.
PriMed is an extension of Baptist Outreach Services and is not for profit. Others, such as Med1, are privately owned, but both say quality is more important than cash flow. Terry Stanton, WSFA TV News.
Unfortunately taken, some personal heat and personal flack from some areas on that.
Dr. H.T. Montgomery is one of 28 physicians who owns Med1, the first urgent care center in Montgomery. He says facilities like Med1 challenge the old traditions of medicine.
And everything new and innovative that's come along in medicine, I think some of us, and I include myself in that group, feel a little bit threatened or challenged at the winds of change blowing.
Just like any other business in the world of free enterprise, the competition is tough. Prices between the clinics are competitive. The basic charge is $25. Dr. Montgomery says Med1 is showing a profit, but officials at PriMed say their clinic is still in the red.
Can you open up real fast?
Urgent care centers compete on a time factor also. Most patients can be in and out within the hour.
Patient doesn't get off work till 5 and has a lot of other things to do themselves. Well, these clinics will fulfill that need.
The The question of quality overshadows many clinics. All the urgent care centers in Montgomery insist they're fully equipped to handle any major medical emergency and are all staffed with skilled, competent physicians.
As far as the quality, I think it's of as high a quality as you'll find anywhere.
But healthcare experts emphasize that walk-in clinics are not designed to handle major emergencies. For major emergencies and special medical cases, patients should go to the emergency room or see a specialist. Terry Stanton, WSFA TV News.
How you doing?
Dr. H.T. Montgomery insists that urgent care centers will never replace the family doctor.
And I think people with long-standing chronic illnesses and whatnot need and should have a physician of their own. We're by no means trying to usurp that position.
No way will it ever do that, nor would I ever want it.
Most healthcare experts agree that the clinics are here to stay, but the outlook isn't so bright for many hospitals. Patient admissions have dropped steadily since 1982, and because of changes in government reimbursement plans for Medicare patients, hospitals are having a tough time making ends meet.
The American Hospital Association has predicted that by the 1990s, some 1,000 hospitals in the nation will close.
But while hospitals may lose some revenue because of urgent care centers, most healthcare experts don't think they'll go out of business because of them.
We're doing what physicians and physicians' offices have always done, and that is rendered primary care to patients. This is what the business of doctoring is all about. We seek no quarrel, and we see none from our standpoint.
Most feel they can work together, with urgent care centers handling minor problems and hospital emergency rooms handling real emergencies. So while it's not quite the same as going to see the old family doctors, urgent care centers do serve a purpose. They provide easily accessible health care at pretty affordable prices. Terry Stanton, WSFA TV News.
Jim.
Dacey told the judge he realized that he broke the law when he solicited the loan from World Life Insurance Company. The loan was used to buy a condominium in Baldwin County. Dacey said another man, Stuart Graydon, obtained the loan for him because he couldn't afford it. The prosecution alleged that the loan was provided at a reduced rate of interest because of Dacey's position. Dacey resigned his examiner's job with the state insurance department shortly after he entered his guilty plea February 7th.
Judge Thomas says he'll hold a restitution hearing in the Dacey case, but he didn't set a date today. Charles Dacey begins serving his prison term next Friday. This is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News reporting.
Specifically, the grand jury charged him with trafficking in cocaine, that he possessed 106 grams of cocaine. The seriousness of this charge is that it's a minimum 3 years in prison and a $50,000 fine. Under Alabama law, it means he can't get out for 3 years on probation or parole.
Sambo, I'll see you down. Sambo, I'll see you down there.
Specifically, the grand jury charged him with trafficking in cocaine, that he possessed 106 grams of cocaine. The seriousness of this charge is that it's a minimum 3 years in prison and a $50,000 fine. Under Alabama law, it means he can't get out for 3 years on probation or parole.
if the catcher's first. We've had several cases in the past that we prosecuted, and we hate for it to come down to that because we're not in the business of trying to put people in jail. But in order to get people to lay off, we're having to set some examples. Using the converters or HBO devices in order to receive pay channels. A piece of microwave or something coming in from that tower out there. What?
Star Cable in Montgomery is taking the problem very seriously. In fact, they're prosecuting if necessary.
We hate for it to come down to that because we're not in the business of trying to put people in jail. But in order to get people to lay off, we're having to set some examples. The fine can range from $250 to $1,000 with a 60-day jail sentence. The court cases that we've had, it's always costed people a minimum of $250. There's been some cases where the judge fined them $500, depending on how much problem they cause the other paying subscribers.
The company has literally been going house to house to spot the illegal connections.
Every single residence in the city of Montgomery is being inspected to make sure that the line is either active or not active.
But for now, the company is willing to let bygones be bygones. Anyone who has a cable connection that's not being paid for can call Store. They'll either terminate the service or sign you up as a paying customer, no questions asked. But officials say the amnesty policy won't last forever. I'm Bob Howell, WSFA TV News.
Let's hold our independence as sacred, thanking God. All the time. George, you have to sign my... Then up she went to her grandfather's chest and got him a hat of the very, very best. She got him a hat of the very, very best. And the soldier put it on. Betsy True, Betsy Bread, Betsy Ross.
The idea of rest does sound good.
To begin with, he never cut down the cherry tree. He did too, and he couldn't tell a lie. He couldn't tell a lie, that's right. But he never cut down the cherry tree. That's just a legend.
All right. You don't like to talk? I don't even like to talk. Why? I don't like to talk.
They would be doing it if they got another.
If we get the wrong ones, just to pretend we got the right one.
He's retiring. Yeah, I'm going to work for a tenant contractor, yeah. I had to ante up more than that. I had to ante way up. Did you? Yeah. Okay. Dogs? No, England. Oh. I've had 3 or 4 approach me.
A legend in her own time, and a reality in the fulfillment of dreams.
An Association of State Colleges and University.
On the drawing board right now, for example, in business, if a student's federal financial aid package, whether it's a Pell Grant or whether it's a GSL, a guaranteed student loan, if adjusted family gross income is going to determine the eligibility of students, and with this gross income level dropping, that most certainly will affect the ability of many students to attend colleges. An FM radio station which serves as a laboratory for these young men and women who are seeking careers in broadcast management. And for your listening pleasure,
They are works of art that almost come to life with their realism. In many cases, the results of weeks or even months of intense work. This is the Alabama Duck Stamp Art Competition, an annual contest for Alabama artists to produce a painting that will be used on the state duck stamp. The duck stamp is bought by hunters and grants them state permission to hunt waterfowl in Alabama. The stamp itself cost only $5, but state officials say the winning painting can be worth much more, perhaps bringing in gross sales in excess of $50,000. Still, artists who have won in the past, like John Lee of Montevallo, say the artist doesn't see much of the cash.
The only thing you can really count here is recognition out of it. Monetarily, there's not that much to be made off of one of these.
This year, there are 72 entries. It's the largest field ever and evidence of the growing popularity of the duck stamp contest. The judging is done by 3 experts from the fields of art, ornithology, and conservation. To say the least, the judging can be a nerve-wracking experience for artists and spectators. Finally, after the field has been narrowed down to 5 entries, a winner is chosen. And the work of art that just moments ago was just another entry is now a collector's item. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News.
The 1986-87 waterfowl stamp is Danny Dorning of Hayden, Alabama. Yes, sir.
Well, agriculture is still the #1 segment of our economy in Alabama. Forestry and agriculture, which are handled by the committee, really, from an economic viewpoint, affects so many people in Alabama. Agriculture is at a crossroads. We're writing a 4-year farm bill. We've got the farm credit crisis. I just didn't feel like I could desert the farmers of the state at this particular time.
State Senator Gerald Dial of Lineville said he felt the cards were stacked against him when he entered the hearing, where a subcommittee from the state Democratic Party was to decide whether the senator should be removed from the state executive committee. The meeting stemmed from a complaint filed by Judy Lowe, who claims Dial violated party rules by running as an independent in 1983. Dial won the election as an independent, beating out the Democratic Party nominee.
You can vote to expel me, but the people in my district will have the ultimate vote. They will have the last vote, and that is the most important.
And expel they did. After a few minutes, Dial was kicked off the executive committee. Lowe says her decision to file the complaint was a personal one.
No, nobody asked me. It's a personal thing with me. I believe in party discipline and party loyalty. And as much as I like Gerald, I don't think you can have it both ways. We're either, Democrats or we're not.
But later, Dial questioned Lowe's motives, saying his political enemies were behind her complaint.
And I feel quite sorry for Ms. Lowe in the fact that she's receiving her guidance from someone else other than her own thoughts and ideas.
So you think she made her complaint not based on her own ideas? But
I'm quite certain of that. Yes, Paul Hubbard.